world so somebody, they know who you are. Whatever it is, I want to ask you a few questions today. What's the point of getting there or getting the bigger house or the fancier car or the promotion or the significance if you lose everything in the process to get there? What's the point? There are so many people in today's world that we know like one aspect of their life, and maybe they're killing it in their business. And maybe they're a millionaire, maybe they're a multimillionaire. We have billionaires in the world. There are people who have made lots and lots of money, but if we were to actually look at their life, what did they sacrifice to get there? And for a lot of people in those situations, they achieved the goal but lost their family in the process. They lost who they were in the process. There's a famous football player who is an analyst. Now he's a commentator on television, and he will straight up tell you, he's like, I was so preoccupied with my career and hitting all these goals and doing these things, and then after I was done actually playing football, and then, okay, now this is the next phase of my life, and he's like, yeah, I got the big house, I got the money, I got all the stuff, and he's like, I don't have anybody to share it with. Sometimes we're running so fast in life that we lose the things that matter the most. What's the point of getting there faster if you lose your physical health along the way? Yeah, you might get there, but then you're going to pay for it the rest of your life because you didn't sleep or eat right or do X, Y, Z. Now you got health problems. What's the point of getting there faster if your mental health starts to decline? If your relational health, your spiritual health declines? Yeah, you might reach that goal, but what did you lose to get there? You know, there are some people in life that they live at a very fast pace, and that's not the case for everybody, but I believe that we are all wired a little bit differently. We have different paces that which we like to do life. But what I want to encourage you today is I want you to check the pace of your life. Check the pace of your life. For some of us in this room, maybe you came from a background where there was poverty. Maybe there was XYZ that happened, and because of that thing in your life, you have positioned yourself and you run at such a pace because you don't want to be poor like you grew up. And so you will work 2 or 3 or 4 jobs, whatever it takes, because you just don't want to be poor because that was so significant to you as a child that, no, I'm not going to end up that way. And you're trying so hard, but in the process, you're losing your family along the way. Is your pace sustainable? Are you trying to do everything so fast? Now, here's what I want to encourage you with today. We can change our pace. If you've been running too fast and you've lost people along the way, I want to encourage you, check your pace and change it. Line it up with what God has for you. Line it up with what God has for your family, because He has the right pace for you. Before we jump in, I want to give you kind of an overview of the pace of Jesus' life. The pace of Jesus' life. If you were to read all the scriptures about Jesus, He had a specific pace that He did it all. In 3 years, He fulfilled all of the messianic prophecies. In 3 years. In 3 years, He radically transformed the world. He was able to gather people around Him, disciples to come around Him, followers to come around Him, people who ended up taking the gospel message to the ends of the earth. In 3 years. But here's what I want to point out to you. Nowhere in the Bible do we ever find Jesus in a hurry. If you look through the scriptures, you won't see the disciples and Jesus in haste scurried along. The disciples and Jesus, they were late for an appointment, so they just left immediately. We never see Jesus in a hurry. Why? Because He's got perfect timing. Now listen, he is Jesus. He is the Son of God. So like if he really wanted to, he probably could have like teleported to different places and done things that way. But that's not the pace in which he chose to live. One of the things that's so interesting, there's a story in the Bible, John 11. We're not going to read through that story, but it's the pace of which Jesus responds to this emergency. His friend Lazarus is dying. Somebody has come, found Jesus in a different village, different city, and says, your friend is dying. We need you to come. And Jesus is like, thank you for letting me know. We will go. And that person goes back. But here's what the scripture says. It says that Jesus actually waits 2 days before he goes. He's not in a hurry. And by the time he gets there, his friend has been dead for 4 days. But God has perfect timing. So he shows up and he raises this man back to life. Jesus has a specific pace in which he lives. If you were to read the scriptures, you never see Jesus like galloping on a horse. The only animal that we have recorded of Jesus being on is a walking animal. A donkey. Why? The question is why? Why did Jesus do it at this pace? And here's the reason why. So that other people could walk with him. So that other people could walk with him and keep up with him. My first question to you today is, does your pace allow for others to walk with you and keep up with you? Does the pace at which you live your life allow others to walk with you and keep up with you? Now, a little known fact about me, I am 6'1". If I stand up really tall, my posture is getting bad. I am 6'1". Now, I have an incredible, amazing wife. She is a teacher. She is a mom. She is a worship leader. She is a pastor. She is so many incredible things. But I also, if you have not noticed, she is not 6'1". And when a 6'1" walks with a 5-something, there's a difference in stride. Now, I got long legs. And so when I walk, like this is my normal step. Okay? This is me walking. Okay? That's not fast, that's not slow. Like this is me normally walking. When my wife is walking with me, she's like, you are sprinting. Like I cannot keep up with you. Like what are you doing out there? Like it's my normal walk. It is my pace. This is how God designed my legs. But when you're trying to walk with somebody, if you are walking and you have to look behind and you're like, oh, where are you? And this happens quite a bit. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's not intentional. It's just the pace at which I was created to walk. Now, if you've got little kids, or maybe you have a spouse who is vertically challenged as well, and you are walking, and this is what their steps look like when they try to keep up with your one step at a time. Like they're like having to sprint and run just to try to keep up with you. Now, the way we have figured this out and how to keep pace is if I hold her hand, this helps regulate the pace a little bit. Now, my inclination is still to take the steps, right? And then it's like the squeeze of the hand, like, it's too fast. I can't walk that way. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm walking with somebody. Okay. So I'm taking like a half step now. Can I just tell you, sometimes in life, we're just walking too fast for the people around us. There are people at your work, people in your family, they want to walk with you. But the pace at which you are living your life is at a speed that they cannot keep up with. And they may try for a while, but they just can't keep that pace. So you either have to come to some sort of an agreement, an arrangement, a compromise, or you may get to the destination and not have anybody there. The word pace, this is what it means. It means rate of movement. It's the tempo, or it's the speed at which you do something. If we were to look at the etymology of the word pace, it comes from the Latin word pax, which means peace. Peace. When you live at a reasonable pace, you should have peace. When you live at a reasonable pace, you should have peace. So my question to you is today, do you have peace in your life? Or are you living at a pace that's unreasonable? Do you have peace? We're going to be in Hebrews chapter 12, starting in verse 1. But I need to give you the background information first. In Hebrews 11, it's a famous chapter in the Bible. We refer to it as the Hebrews, the Hall of Fame of faith. There are some big name people in this book, and then there's some people that maybe you don't know as well, but there are heroes of the faith such as Noah and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and David and on and on. And we have these stories of where they had these obstacles to overcome. And as they've overcome these obstacles, we see the power of God working through them. We see the victory of the Lord working through them, and they've had to have faith to get through these things. So with that as the background, look now at Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. And that verse 1, it says to strip off every weight. Now, if you've ever seen somebody who is like a sprinter, and like this is what they do for a living, or this is what they're doing in high school or college or whatever it is. And what they will often do is they will run with some sort of weights. They'll put extra weight on them. They'll put an ankle weight. They'll put wrist weights on. They might run with some sort of a weighted vest. And they're trying to do this because they understand that if they learn how to run with a heavier weight on them, that when the time comes off to take it off, they will be stronger. They will be faster. If you look at like collegiate athletes or high school or even Olympic athletes, you will find these people who are sprinters and runners, and they are wearing things that look like onesies. I mean, it's just a little bit more than skin on their body. That's about it. And the reason is they have stripped off everything that would weigh them down so that they can move as fast as they possibly can. In our life, we need to strip off the things that are holding us back, that are weighing us down, so that we can move at the pace at which God has for us. We need to take off the stuff that isn't helping us get to the destination. Point number 2, the correct pace comes with patience. The correct pace comes with patience. And that verse 1 of Hebrews 12, it says, let us run with endurance. And let us run with endurance. Well, here's what that word means in Greek. Okay, it's hupanome. Just look at your neighbor and say, hupanome. It means patience. So this is saying, let us run with patience. Let us run with patience. Now, here's what happens a lot of times. In life, in Christian life, we feel like it is a sprint. It's the 100-yard dash. Now, one of the people who attend our church, they are a PE teacher, and they were so inspired by the first service message. They're like, hey, you got to show these. He literally had track and field shoes in his cars. I'm like, what is wrong with you? And he's like, no, I run. And he's like, I have long-distance shoes in my car as well. And I'm like, okay, you're one of those. All right. But we feel like it's a sprint. Now, when you're sprinting, it's a different style of shoe. It's very lightweight, and there's some spikes on here to help keep traction. But can I tell you, our life is not meant to be a sprint. Our life is more of a marathon. But a lot of us try to live it as a sprint. A lot of people in life, they will start out fast, And maybe the people around them are like, wow, look at what you were doing. You were doing so much. Look at your age. You've accomplished so much. And here's what happens. There are some more mature, wiser people with experience that are looking at that person and they're going, I don't know that they're going to make it. I don't know that they're going to last. Several years ago, my son was in a track meet, and it was a fourth grade track meet, and they were doing the 1 mile race. And they started, and this kid took off. I mean, he took off and just boom, just going. I mean, like, people are looking at him. People in the stands are like, holy moly, is this kid going to be like an Olympic athlete or something? And then he gets around that first lap. He is like half a lap ahead of everybody. And we were like, what are we watching right now? The announcer says this, I hope he understands that this is 4 laps. By the middle of lap 2, this fourth grader who was sprinting is now about half the pace he was at. By the end of lap 2, everybody had caught up with him. By the end of the 4th lap, there was literally people that lapped him. You see, this is what happens so many times in life where young people, we will start off so fast and we got so much energy and we're ready to go. But what happens is we will burn out before the end of the race. You've got to learn to have pace. My question to you is, are you trying to get ahead of God? Are you trying to get ahead of God? Well, what do you mean by that? I mean, listen, a lot of us, we're impatient. That's why it says, let us run with endurance or patience. We're impatient. And no, I want it to happen today, God. Lord, I want to be an overnight success. God, I want that healing today. God, I want the answer that you have today. And when we don't get that, here's what we do. Oh, God, I'm just going to help you out a little bit. I mean, think about the pride and the ego inside of us that think that we're just going to help God out a little bit. I'm gonna help him out, and I'm going to get there a little bit faster. God has perfect timing. You are not going to get there faster. An even pace in life, it may not seem exciting for you. Young people in the front, that may not seem exciting for you right now. But you know what's exciting? Finishing. It's being there at the end with the ones that you love. Can you finish the race that God has put before you? You have to learn how to manage your rhythm and your speed. When Jessica and I first got married, I was a youth pastor, and I tell you this, that I was living by faith, which means I did not make much. And we were living by faith, and we both had some school loans and different things that we were trying to pay off, and so we went without. Like I had an old Honda Civic, and, like you're looking at the other people around you that are similar in age, and you're like, they have power windows. I don't even know if they make a car now that doesn't have power windows, but when I was growing up, they didn't have power windows in all the cars that I was driving. And you're like, I would no longer have to do this. But it was like one of those small luxury things, and it's like, but we had a plan, we had a pace. This is how we are going to make it through. We're going to say no to this because we're saying yes to this because we want to get out of debt. We don't want to owe the government any money. We want to move on from this. And so we said no. There may be times in life that even pace, it may seem slow to you, and it may seem like people around me are getting further ahead, but I just want to let you know they may not be there at the end of the race. But will you have an even pace? And can I just tell you, young people, please, here's a couple of things. Live within your means. That means spend less than you make and save. End of story. If you do that, you'll be ahead of most adults. Number 3, has God set the pace for your race? Has God set the pace for your race? Or are you setting your own race? Like, no, this is the speed. This is how it's going to happen. I'm going to achieve all of this by the age of 25, or I'm going to achieve all of this by the age of 45. This is the speed at which I am going to live my life. But I just have a question for you. Did you allow God to speak into it? Or did you just decide? Did you spend any time in prayer? Did you spend any time with the one who gave you life and ask him his opinion on it, what he thought about it? Is God telling you need to work 80 hours a week for the next 40 years of your life? I don't think so. Is God telling you to do all the things that you're doing right now? Or are you just adding stuff on that's not really benefiting you or your family? Now, I do want to say this. The pace that you live, it may not be the same as other people around you. There are some people in this room that your pace is like, it's 5 o'clock and I have dinner every night at 5 o'clock. And by 8:30 p.m., I'm in bed. For others of us, 8:30 p.m. is when you're eating dinner. Like, there's a different pace. There's a different life. There's a different, so wherever you're at in life, the pace may change. So you can't expect everybody around you to do it your way, because there's not a one way on this. But what I'm telling you is, has God set the pace at which you are living right now? Or are you just trying to do it your way? Point number 4. God's pace includes rest. God's pace includes rest. Mark chapter 2, verse 27. Then Jesus said this to them: the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. From the beginning of time, the beginning of creation, God created a period of rest. Then on the 7th day, there would be rest. From the very beginning of time. But most of us, if we're really honest, we do not honor that. And so we kind of do it at our own pace. And I understand this is a struggle, but here's what it really comes down to. Do you trust that God can do more in 6 days with you than you can do without God in 7? Do you trust him enough? And yeah, you might be able, I'm going to get ahead. I'm a little behind. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to get ahead. But how long can you do that from a place when you don't have rest? We want to live from a place of rest. Point number 5. Stay in the race with focus. Stay in the race with focus. Let's go back to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor besides God's throne. So it says that we do this race by what? Keeping our eyes on Jesus. Keeping our eyes on Jesus. Now, this phrase in Greek, this is what it means. It means to turn your eyes away from other things, other distractions, and focus on Jesus. That's what this phrase is implying. In 1952, there was a woman by the name of Florence Chadwick. At the age of 34, she wanted to swim from Catalina Island to Palos Verdes on the coast of California. This is about 21 miles. Now, she had a swimming background. She had done some amazing things already. But at age 34, she wanted to be the first woman to ever do this. So she starts off, and it just so happened to be a very cold day. The water was cold. There was lots of fog. You could not see very far in front of you. And so the problem was that she could not see where she was going. Now, she did have a boat or boats behind her that were just there just to help keep her safe if there was an emergency situation. There was actually men on the boat who were carrying rifles to shoot at sharks if they somehow decided to come after her. So she is swimming and swimming and swimming, and she is trying to get to the other side. But she gets to this point because she can no longer see where she is going. that she feels a little bit hopeless, like I'm not going to make it. I don't have enough to get there. And so she signals the boat to come take her out of the water. Now, they were watching this on the news. There was news reporters and things there, and they said, "Oh, how are you feeling about this?" And she was like, "Listen, I'm really disappointed about this." She's like, "But I couldn't see where I was going." She had been in the water for about 16 hours. You know how far away she was? Less than 1 mile. But because she couldn't see it, she gave up. Now, I will tell you, about 2 months later, she went after it again, and she broke the record that had been set by a man, and she did it in 14 hours and 27 minutes. But she knew where she was going. In life, what happens for us is sometimes we just get caught up in the distractions around us. God is saying, I want you to go on this path, and maybe you're headed on that path, but then you're like, ooh, I want to buy a house. I want this, and we're coming over here. God's like, what are you doing? Come back over here. Okay. Wait. I want to do this. God, I need this. No, come back over here. And we just get distracted. There's an old movie called Up, where the characters, every time there's a squirrel, and they get lost, like they get distracted from what is supposed to be happening. If you have children, this is what happens in their life. Squirrel, like what? But as adults, we do this as well. Like we just get distracted from where we're trying to go. Because these are the questions we ask. How fast can I get there? How much stuff can I have when I get there? And then we start to compare ourselves with the others around us, like, oh, look what they have. Nope, I'm going to have better than them. But when your pace is too fast in life, you wear out and you can't finish the race. But when we have Jesus as the centerpiece of who we are, we can accomplish everything he has set out for us because he has set the pace. He has set the race for our life. Now, I will tell you, sometimes in life, Jesus' pace for you is going to be different than the pace that you have for yourself. There may be times in life where Jesus is like, you need to slow down. There may be other times in life he's like, you need to get your rear end up off that couch and do something. But allow him to set the pace. I just want to let you know that when I preach a message, it's never this. Because I want you to know, like, I'm not trying to point at you, but if you look at my hand, I got 3 fingers pointed back at myself. This is something that God has been putting on my heart for my life. Do I have a sustainable pace? If I continue at this pace, will I make it to the finish line that God has for my life? And will I make it there with the ones that are closest to me? So sometimes in life, you've got to pause. You've got to reflect. And you've got to say, God, what do you want from me right now? And God has been putting it on my heart that less is more. That less is more. Do I trust God enough to do less and that he will do more with my less than I will do with all that I have? This is in my family. This is for the church. So I want to let you know, I'm going to do less because I want to finish the race. And I hope you want to finish the race that God has for you too. I hope that you want to finish the race that God has for CLA in our community. But let's do it together. Let's get on a pace that we can do this together. Let's get on a pace that our families are right there with us so that we don't lose people along the way. so we don't sacrifice the things that are important to us to reach the goal.